here. So thanks very much for your time, Mark Kruger. This is Mike Anthony, and Mark is educating me a little bit about why my idea for trying to get more granular with the type of office buildings we have in the education industry, why that may not work. And the idea was inspired by a conversation I had with the Trade Association, Building Owners and Managers Association, about a year or so ago, and they said we would like to see a little bit more granularity. We're seeing different types of office buildings, and they seem to fall upon this area where there are cloud-based type of enterprises and there still are paper-based enterprises. We wouldn't mind seeing a little more granularity there. The hope is that they wouldn't be overbuilding structurally. Now, I completely understand why when you start to touch the structural design of buildings that you're touching some very sensitive nerves, and I don't doubt it. But I also don't mind doing things that are impossible, and I actually have a taste for that. And if along the way of looking for this one thing we find some others, and it looks like we have, then we think that it might be a worthwhile endeavor. So this is an area where, in the architectural structural design, where the University of Michigan's consortia of universities has not gone in any depth. So we thought that we'd take probably one of the most difficult areas and approach it. And I'm grateful to have the time and expertise of Mark. So Mark now will be telling me why my proposal here is not optimal. And what you're seeing me try to do is to look at I have a deadline of, this is actually 2015. I'm using an old form. We have proposals to do on the 15th, and I'm trying to get greater correlation between the building code and the structural design document ASCE 7. And where we're at then is, because in the interest of time and because we have to prioritize, I focused on this area here. And Mark is now going to explain to me exactly why it's probably unwise to touch this. You want to go ahead, Mark?
Well, I guess first of all, the proposal that you had was a change to Chapter 3 of the IBC, Section 304. Which defines different use and occupancy classifications.
Right, so I'll go back there just so they can see what we're talking about. So here's me looking at business group B, and so we felt that we had another proposal here, I believe, that was right. Yeah. Is this the one right here?
Yeah, that looks like it.
Okay, that's right. So this is what we were trying to do here, and see, the NFPA, they regard this as mercantile, but Business Group B, they give a list. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So this is defining different types of use and occupancy in the code, and so you're trying to make a distinction between two different office types. You had an office type A for with storage, and office type B without paper storage. But what I was pointing out to you is that this is not a section of the code that the structural engineer would typically go to start defining the loads for a structure. The structural engineer is going to go to Chapter 16 and look in Section 1607 where the live loads are. Now you can't see that there's in the column, there is a column called occupancy or use. Unfortunately, that column is not well coordinated with Chapter 3. So the structural engineer isn't going to go to Chapter 3 and then back to this table. They're just going to start with this table depending on what the architect is telling them the use of the building is.
But on a set of plans, when it's being sent up to the state for review or wherever it's getting reviewed, there's going to be some basic information about the type of facility it's going to be. There may be several occupancy use classes within the same structure, but getting a closer correlation there is not unwise, in my opinion.
I would agree with you that a coordination between Chapter 3 and Chapter 16 would be a good thing, but they are not coordinated right now.
So where would we approach it? Obviously, I focused on the office building part of it. Our proposal could be simply that could we go to? I'm going to go. You're at any time, Mark. You can you can cut in here. But
yeah.
so if you're going to use business group B, okay. So business group B, but on the on table 1607, it looks to me like they take this would be like a residential, so you could actually go and have another column here that would say this is section 304, whatever residential would be. It strikes me that in itself would help a little bit. So if we go to residential group R, and I think there's different types of R. Isn't there R1, R2?
Right.
Yeah, right. All that kind of stuff there. So, well, you could make some gains there if you were simply to say, let's rejigger this table and put another column here.
I'm not sure you'd put another column there. I think if you just took that column called occupancy or use in table 1607, and for each one of the various use groups up in Chapter 3, if you had, this particular, this happens to be uniform and concentrated load, minimum design live load values that you want to use. So you could have a separate design value for each one of those use types that are defined up in Chapter 3. But like I said, right now they're not coordinated. So right now the structural engineer would typically then just go to this table, and in your particular case, you're down in the office use group. Yeah, so under office buildings, and here you see that for corridors above the first floor, they're designed for 80 pounds per square foot. If there are file or computer rooms, they have to be designed for whatever the structural engineer deems appropriate, because there's not actually a value given there. So lobbies and first floor corridors are designed for 100 pounds per square foot, but general office space is designed for 50 pounds per square foot. And this is where what I'm trying to discern from you is where, it sounds to me like you're trying to say, okay, if we have some offices, so where we have offices defined here, we could have offices with paper storage and offices without paper storage. So offices with paper storage right now are designed for 50 pounds per square foot. If you had offices without paper storage, we'd have to have a value to put in there.
So that's the fun part. The fun part is you wag a number like 40, and then you ask for the National Institute of Science and Technology to fund that research.
To fund some research, yeah. You certainly wouldn't be able to, I can't imagine you would get a value that would be less than 40. 40 is what we use for residential construction.
Oh, okay. We don't need
single-family
that.
homes.
So, yeah, we don't need that. Okay.
So 40 is pretty low.
No.
So it would seem, I'm not sure how much. You don't have a lot of room to work there, then, I guess, between the 50 and whatever else you might come up with. So I'm just not sure if that's going to gain a whole lot of ground. I mean, I understand where you're headed with, our use of buildings is certainly considerably different now than last time live loads were studied. So it might be worthwhile to consider investigating what are current live loads. Maybe the 50 is too high.
Well, that's always on the agenda, right?
Yeah.
Right. When I've talked to the other experts, your colleagues, I never said that I wouldn't try to put my shoulder into getting a grant to study all this. Of course, I have to rank it. I've got only so many hours of advocacy time, but I don't mind having a study of that. Now, if you recall earlier that we had dealt with something interesting, I don't want to dwell too much on it, but whatever research is necessary, I don't mind saying that, we spend something on the order of maybe 30, I'll say 15 to 30 billion per year on structural steel. That may mean a lot to people, and this may not be something that yields a lot in terms of avoided cost, but again, it's personally attractive because it hasn't been touched for so long. The best I can tell, and nothing in my experience, and I work across 20 different standard suites. Getting IBC and NFPA and ash rate to correlate. That's one of my projects or one of my proposals out there. You see the same phenomena. But you need to get data in there. So getting back to here, Nate Sosin brought this to our attention. It looks like they're not going to let us see it anymore. Well, the National Institutes of Science and Health Structural Design Requirements. They actually, is it going to come back up for us? It looks like we may not be able to get to it. All right, so they must have moved the page. So getting back to where we might want to, so we actually, this is the draft proposal page and all known applicable standard passages. So what I did here was this looks like it's more of the same. So this is another version. So, it's your opinion that there might not be enough to work here. Certainly we can get the formatting fixed, getting closer correlation between between the chapter 3 and this. That might be something that I could do relatively easily, and get one of my architects to look at that more carefully, and we could say, well, all right, what can we do? I keep going back to this. What can we do? Suppose, just as a matter of heuristic, we were to try to say here, is this a table? Are we able to do something with the table here? So I'll just take a guess that I can. Table, layout, design, layout, insert to the left, for example. Okay. And then we would, I don't know why it gave me 2 of them, but I'll just live with one of them. And so then we would say this is section 304, whatever it was. So, and let's go over here to, if we were to go over here to 1607 again on live loads. And armories and drill rooms. Well, that's interesting. So let's just see how that tracks. Armories and drill rooms. Let's see if that armories. So, well, that's interesting. So it shows up here, but it doesn't show up there. So then I would say, what would that possibly be? Would that be an institutional group? So then we would say, we would add armories and drill rooms. See what I'm driving at?
Right, yeah.
Okay, well I can practically get a student to do that. And just put it on the table and see what they think. So that might alleviate some fears of the structural engineering community, like this me alone has a possibility of changing 1607. No, it doesn't work that way. I'm too much of a veteran of this process.
But yeah, I mean, I do think coordinating Chapter 3 and Table 1607 would certainly. I think one of the things it would do is kind of point out there are like the so we have armories and drill rooms, which I don't know why 1607 has a specific use for that. Why there's a specific design load for that. It might better be combined with one of the other uses, a place of assembly or something.
Okay.
Now, you were trying to bring up some information on laboratory design loads. I mean, that's something you will see is not in Table 1607. Those are usually higher loads, higher design loads, So that might be an area where, up in Chapter 3, there are certainly, there is a laboratory use group, but in Chapter 16, in Table 1607, there's not a design load established for that. And obviously there's a lot of different types of laboratories, so you'd want to make sure you had enough specificity in the different types of laboratories so you're not over designing some buildings to account for way more load than what you actually need.
Yeah, there's actually for NIST, if you go back to the Office of Science and Technology, I believe that if I were to make a superscript here, we can put a footnote on this, and I can refer to this. So throw a number at me, Mark. Got a number to put in here?
Let's start with 100.
All right. Okay. Good. So, all right. So I think we've got our work cut out. We've got until January to clean this up a little bit. So what I like about this is that we're not really throwing thunderbolts. We're not trying to, at the moment, shortchange any necessary structural strength or resilience or whatever you guys call it, but trying to get closer correlation, which might, if you had a 10 or 20% error, maybe your error is only 5 to 15% over design or under design. So that correlation, it gets them talking. We got about a year and a half to deal with this. So I think this is just enough. We're actually over our time limit. So I think I'll stop our recording here and thank you very much for your time. I'll upload this, and our other colleagues who can't come in this time slot can have a listen. I try to keep them less than 30 minutes. These are not polished. This is strike and bold. This is not lunch and learn. This is the point of action, folks. And I try to make them understand that if you're expecting a nice glossy PowerPoint, this is not the place to come. This is where we do stuff like we're just doing right now. So, okay, so what I'll do before the next conference, and I guess I'll keep it on until we're on for November 20th. So by November 20th, you'll have some new call-in numbers, and I'll have drafts of this stuff, and hopefully some of the others will call in. And if you don't, you've obviously got this tape to listen to. But I think we have something fairly solid here as a result of all this, and I think it's likely to draw interest to the architectural community as well. And so I thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Take care, Mark. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye.